we're talking about systems of equations with three variables, and we want to be able to solve systems of equations. We can do it by hand, and it takes a lot of work, but we can also use matrices in order to solve this. So for those of us that haven't really done a lot with matrices, a matrix is a group of numbers where it has identified rows, which rows go up and down here. So you count the rows this way. And then you have columns that go up and down. Okay, so this spot right here is row 1, column 3. Okay, row 1, column 3. And if you guys use Excel or Google Sheets, on the left side, that would be number, and at the top side, you'd have a letter. So that would be in like Excel or Google Sheets, that would be cell that would be cell C1. So it's in column C and it's row 1. So that's like the idea of a matrix. Basically, Google Sheets is just a giant matrix. All right. The next thing, if we had the equation 2x is equal to 4, we know how to solve that. The way that we do that is we use our GEMDAs, and we do inverse operations, right? So there's multiplication. So how do we solve that? We do the inverse operation, which is divide by 2, and then we get x is equal to 2. That was the inverse operation. Okay. Well, it's the same thing if we have matrices. So here we have A, and A will be a matrix of constants. B will be a matrix of variables. And C will be our answer, or matrix of the solutions. So it kind of looks like this equation here, where we have 2 times a variable is equal to the answer. Okay. However, when we have matrices, we cannot divide by the matrix. We cannot divide this side by matrix A and this side by matrix A and get the answer. So when we are using matrices, we have to do the inverse matrix of A on both sides. So that is the same thing like we did over here when we divided by 2 to get x by itself. Here, if we multiply by the inverse matrix of A times the left side and the right side, that ends up telling us that these cancel out, and then we'll be able to get our answer at that point. So I know that was kind of a little bit different than we're used to, but now we're going to take a look at how to use it in our calculator. All right, so we have the sheet here, and I'm going to talk about it real quick, and then we'll be able to practice it. So in this case, we're going to store a matrix, 3 by 3 matrix in A, and then we're going to try to find our solutions here. So this is going to be X, Y, and Z. We're not actually going to put those in there, but that's what B is going to represent. And then in matrix C, that will be our solution for the answer. And then these are the steps that we need to do in order to follow, in order to get to the matrix. So you hit second on your calculator, and then you hit matrix. So that is above the X inverse key written in blue writing, and it shows it right here on the calculator. And then you'll be able to enter in the matrix that you want for A, because we'll have those values. And then you'll be able to enter in the values that you want for C. And then when you go to type it in, what you should end up with is A matrix inverse times C, and then that will give you your answer. Okay. So when we type it in from the screen, it should say A inverse times C, then hit the enter, and then that will give you your solution for this. So these are the instructions, and that's what the matrix will look like. And so here is the example that we're going to work with. So we need to be able, before we go type anything in our calculator, we need to set up what we're going to do to make sure we get everything set in there correctly. So we are going to set up our matrix of constants. This is a matrix of constants. That's matrix A. So I'm going to put an A right here, and I'm going to use that symbol to illustrate that it isn't a matrix. And I'm just going to make a matrix of the coefficients on the left side. Okay, I'm not paying attention to the answer. I just want to make a 3x3 matrix of the coefficients on the left side. So here, the first coefficient is 3, then 2, then 4. Then 2, then -1, then -3, then 5, then -3, then it's going to be matrix A. Matrix B is going to be a matrix of just the variables. So the only variables in here are going to be X, Y, and Z. So that will give us our solution, which is a matrix of C, which our solution should be 11. We'll write it over here. 11, 4, and -1. So we've already done this. So when we go ahead and type it in, we should get those for our answers when we go to check. One thing about matrix multiplication is this is a 3x3 matrix. This is a 3x1 matrix. And this is a 3x1 matrix. You can only multiply matrices if they have the same number of columns as the same number of rows. They can only be multiplied like this. You could not say B times A, because you can't take a 3x1 matrix and multiply it by a 3x3 matrix. It just doesn't work out based on the way the procedure is. And then your solution will end up being whatever the first one is and the last one, that will be the size of that matrix. So if you take a 3x3 by 3x1, you'll end up with a 3x1 matrix. Okay. Turn our calculator on, and we're going to go second matrix. And we can see that we already have a 3x3 matrix stored in A, and we have a 3x1 matrix stored in C. But what I want to do is I want to edit A. So I scrolled over to the right and hit edit. Then I'm going to type in those numbers that I have. So there are numbers written in here, but they're not the correct numbers. So I'm just going to use my right arrow, and that's 3. That should be 2. That should be 4, 2, -1, -3, 5, -3, 5. All right, and so I have that matrix stored, and now I can go second quit, and then I want to go back in because I want to create my C matrix. Second matrix, and I want to go down to, first I want to edit. So I want to go to edit, 3 by 1, and in this case, the solution should be 11, 4, and -1. Second quit. So I have those matrices stored. Now I want to remember how I'm solving. So right now I had the matrix A times B equals C, but in order to get B by itself, I have to take the inverse of the A matrix and multiply it by C. So I have to recall the A matrix. So what I want to do is I want to go back to second matrix, and now I just want to call the A matrix. So I'm going to call it, just hit enter, and it will pop up in the math screen. Now I want to take the inverse of that. So all I'm going to do is hit the inverse button, which is located right there. Right there. You don't have to hit the second, just hit the inverse, and it pops up on the screen, A inverse. And then I want to go back into the matrix, matrix C. So it says A inverse times C, and I hit enter, and it should give me my solution of 2.5, 3.25, and -7 or -0.75. So that is the solution that we had that we were supposed to get when we got done.